Hey everybody, I'm back. I think I got my computer working, so I'll get the stream going back where I left off. Alright, just to do a quick recap. My screen resolution is all off now. Sorry about this, just get it fixed. Hey everybody, sorry, I just had a bit of problems with my computer today. Not getting the greatest luck, but I think I got everything sorted out now, so I'll be able to continue. Alright, so yeah, basically where I left off is I'm just going to do a show today on a few different topics. Mainly the main show topic is, here we are, the NASA InSight lander, the most recent probe that the NASA sent to Mars. So I'm going to cover that and how it connects to the recent earthquakes, I believe, and my ley line map. And we'll cover a few other things like that recent tomb discovery in Egypt and the volcano that went off in Mexico and how that also connects to this. Alright, so I guess we'll begin. Yeah, so how I got here was I published one of my videos on Disclosed TV, and Disclosed TV got a lot of great feedback from the viewers, and they asked me to do another video on updates and what's going on, so that's basically how we started today. Big shout, or big thanks to everyone at Disclosed TV for the great comments and views. Alright, so yeah, they wanted me to show some of the different wave patterns and how they've been affecting the planet recently, but the website that shows that is down. So I'll just get into my ley lines map and give a brief description on how I made it. So I have a better understanding of it recently, so I figured I'll be better time now to give a shot at explaining it. Alright, so this is the basic globe that you get when you boot up Google Earth. And just like a quick recap on how globes work for anyone who doesn't know. I wasn't actually sure how all this stuff worked either, so you have this line here, the equator, and how that equator line works. I'll bring up the slide. So the equator is when it makes a circle around the entire planet when the sun is directly overhead at noon on the equinoxes. And if people haven't heard about the equinoxes before, that's usually the alignment that all those ancient sites always seem to work on. Like the different shadow patterns in the pyramids in Mexico make the serpent on that day. So yeah, that's how those lines are calculated. That's where you get the measurement for the tropic line, the equator line, and this Tropic of Cancer line. And then these other lines that you see going around the edges of the globe are a path around the whole globe, but on a shorter distance. Like you see how the globe gets more narrow as you go up. So this tropic line isn't it goes around the whole globe, but on a shorter distance. These other white lines are also going around the whole globe, but on a shorter distance, like just around the top. And eventually the shorter distance gets smaller and smaller, and you get to the Arctic Circle line, which is a line around the whole thing, but just on the very edge of the globe. So it's neat too that these tropic lines are what we get from the standard globe, and they also gave us the prime meridian line, which is this line that divides the Earth in half. And it's neat, there was a Greenwich lab or something that this line was established, and it was made for shipping routes so people could get to places easier. But I guess recently the scientists determined the exact center line, this prime meridian, so I guess it's been recently adjusted to that. So this line actually divides the planet directly in half. And it's neat that this prime meridian line and the equator line are the only two lines on this map that are the full length around the biggest part of the Earth, like not cutting off the edges. It goes all the way around the center here and then all the way around the center there. So I thought that was kind of neat, and we got a whole bunch of lines like that. But that really doesn't help us figure out the ley lines. of how the planet works, and I guess I'll get into that next. So Julie's got some sites here up in Montana that she researches. You want to check out her work. It's I think it's Megalithic, Montana. I'll have to look that up and put it in the show description. And her sites make a line all the way down to the Nazca lines. So it's like a huge alignment. And the sites that I research up north, like the Draco Stonehenge, made another alignment line all the way to Easter Island. And they just so happen to cross right in the center at the Tropic of Cancer. I'll see if I can put those ones on here. Yeah, so there's Julie's line there. And there's the site that I research up there. So I noticed that there was an orb pattern that was forming here, and that these lines that were going across were the same as the equator line, where they went across the entire globe the full distance instead of just the edge. Now you can see these lines divide right up the middle, rather than cutting off the edge. So it's neat, like if I turn off all the other lines that come with the standard globe, we get a new globe pattern, except this one consists of, where is it? There we go. Just had an extra line on there. Yeah, so this pattern consists of all of the lines filled in. Like if you went up here and you drew another extra line instead of just the prime meridian, it made it a complete 90 degrees, you start getting an orb pattern. So these orb patterns can be filled in for the rest of the globe and make them all equator lines instead of just tropic lines. And what I did too is I made them all the distance apart that the normal tropics used to be on. So you can see here. There it is, the grid. See, those yellow lines that I made are the tropic lines, except the tropic line goes the edge and my line goes all the way around. So mine's going to be longer. And the shape it makes is that. Here, I'll put on just the yellow lines so you guys can get an idea. Kind of jumped ahead here a little bit. Alright, so there's the complete globe, but with the extra lines filled in. I'm just going to take off these ones. Alright, so this is basically what the globe would look like if each line was the full length around the world instead of just cutting it off, but with the same distance calculations for each tropic line. And you can see that it makes a neat pattern, but it really doesn't tell you everything about how the globe works, which when you add the rest of the lines it does. Alright, so people might be wondering, like, where does this these extra lines come from? They look like maybe you've recognized the pattern already, but I'll show you what it looks like. Yeah, this is a copy of the Peri-Reis map. It's one of the most oldest maps in the ancient times, and people say it's a real anomaly because it showed what North America, South America, and Africa, like the whole world basically before, when everyone thought that the world was still a mystery. And Peri-Reis managed to draw these orbs and put those lines in just the same way that I've been doing for the equator map. Now I'm not sure what these lines are, if they're the Earth's magnetic field or ley lines or what kind of energy we're dealing with here, maybe even torsion fields. But here I'll put so you get a good look here. Once you do the equator map and you compare it to Peri-Reis's map, you can start to see just how accurate it is. Like the line going straight across from above the Strait of Gibraltar connects to that orb, goes across, connects to that orb. This orb goes down on an angle and connects to a big one, like it does there. We can see here too that if I drew in this extra line, it would complete it identically to how it is to Perry Reese's. In Perry's Reese map, you might have noticed his orbs. He did 16 lines, or no, what is it, 32 lines for all the degrees. And when I made mine, I was only able to fit in half. So there's 16 degrees instead of 32. So I think that's the main reason why we're getting this incomplete pattern for this picture. If you draw the line in there, it would fill in perfectly and match. Yeah, then if you follow the line to the orb too, on an angle down, it connects just to the other orb like that one. You have here the Strait of Gibraltar, there it is there. Yeah, so some people might not even notice, but this is South America that Perry Reese had here, just like it is here on this map. You start to see too that the orb lines that he has cutting across from like that, going across, match on that too. The only thing that's a little bit different is I noticed Perry Reese has one orb here instead of two on mine, which I'm wondering why he did that. I'll have to look into it further. Not sure exactly. Still got a lot to learn about his map. Alright, now it's neat too that Perry Reese did his map with 32 degrees, and I thought that was neat because Freemasonry always talks about the 32 degrees too. Like, I think that was introduced by Albert Pike, and he was really into the Magi. And the Magi are these winged disc guys up here. So I was thinking, yeah, that's kind of neat. I wonder if it's just a coincidence, or the 32 degrees of Freemasonry is also the same ancient ley line map that the ancient structures were built on, following. Alright, so in the news recently, there was that big 7-pointer earthquake that happened in Alaska. So I was going to show everyone exactly where it landed on my ley line map so they could get a better look. Alright, so I think the epicenter of the quake was around Anchorage. Oh yeah, and yeah, there was some interesting information that I found recently. Alright, I guess I'll break it down for everyone. Yeah, like the first time I made this whole ley line map, I was using an overlay that Google had built into the program so that you could see all the earthquakes and stuff that had happened in the past, and they were all mapped. And I thought that was really cool. And then, yeah, when I went back to do the new show updates, I noticed that Google's removed that feature, so you can't see the earthquakes anymore. And it was funny because there's a whole bunch of schools and students complaining. They're like, hey, why did you guys take out the earthquake feature? But luckily I found there's still a way around that problem. What I did is I booted up Google Earth, and then I just uploaded a separate file for another overlay that you can still get about earthquakes. So there it is there. So now you guys can see where the Anchorage, Alaska earthquake was and how it's on this ley line center. Now this other ley line that goes near the earthquake, where is it? Yeah, that one there. It happens to go down to, oh there it is. Yeah, this yellow line. It goes down to where that other seismic anomaly was. The one that echoed around the planet. Alright, I just got a call to go upstairs. I'll be back right in 1 second, everyone. Alright, sorry everybody. No, my mom just made me a nice cup of soup, so didn't want to keep her waiting. Alright, so let's get back to it. Alright, so where did I leave off? Oh yeah, I was adding the earthquakes to this map. And it was neat that I could see that everywhere that there was a seismic anomaly. Here, I guess I'll show you guys. Here's the seismic anomaly map. There was one off the coast of Chile here, one in Canada, Madagascar, and New Zealand. So I'll just show you each one of those. There's the one off Chile where it happened. You can see it's where two ley lines intersect. It's kind of a interesting active area. Here's another one where off of Newfoundland. So you can see there's some intersecting ley lines there. Where else did we have? Oh yeah, the major epicenter of it was right here. You can see it's close to that ley line. Oh yeah, and the Indonesia one. There's massive ley lines over here. I forget which one is that. Oh, off the tip there. Ah, there it is. Yeah, so this is where the other earthquake anomaly was happening, on that ley line there. Yeah, so it's neat that those ley lines, I don't know if you guys have noticed the pattern here that I seem to be seeing too, but it seems like where these red lines emanate from the center of orbs is where you're going to get a lot of these earthquakes. Like Japan usually gets hammered by those ones. Man, that red line seems to hammer those people. Yeah, here's where the Alaska one happened. There's one of the red line epicenters. You can see how it shoots it right at Anchorage. Let's see. Oh, I got the Earth sideways. Yeah, see how the red lines are blasting right at Alaska. So I don't know if maybe that's a clue that we can find out how earthquakes are working. You can definitely see where the red lines blast and hit land. It's definitely going to be a lot of earthquakes. I guess it doesn't happen in every spot, so like up in Russia there was quite a few, and then they don't really have many earthquakes there. Although you can see the few earthquakes they do have usually happen on close to the ley lines. Alright, well I thought that was kind of neat that we could see where the earthquake patterns are with the different ley lines. How this map is like really showing them. Oh yeah, I thought it was neat too, the ones in Europe recently. You can see the Iran quake. That one actually connects down all the way to the spot where the major anomaly happened. So that's actually the same ley line. I don't know if people have been tracking in Greece and in that area, in that one sea. There's where two red lines intersect, and that's basically where those big earthquakes have been happening. I have to say that there's probably a risk for anyone on one of these red lines that there's going to be some earthquakes in your general vicinity. Can't say for sure, but that's just my guess. Oh, here's where some more lines. So even the blue lines seem like they have it happen occasionally, just not as often as the red ones. Alright, so I'll get on to some more of the information for the show. Don't want to spend too much time on just that. Oh yeah, recently on the news, you guys probably all heard about it. If not, I'll bring it up here quick so you can see. There was a big tomb discovery in Egypt. I'll bring that up here. Alright, here it is, a royal tomb from 4,400 years ago. This is an article by the New York Times. And you can see the tomb isn't like in mint shape, or it hasn't been robbed by grave robbers yet. And they just recently discovered it. I noticed they had some ox sacrifice paintings in this tomb. which is really into the Magi stuff I research all the time, so I can hardly wait to research this some more. So I guess the most important thing about this discovery is like I wanted to check what it has to do with the ley line map and see if there was any connection. So what I did here is I made a slide and it shows where on the map they discovered this new tomb. And it happens to be halfway between two of the ley lines. I was thinking if I finished in Perry Reese's full design for 32 degrees, this tomb would have landed right directly on one of those lines. So it was like neat that these people that found this new tomb, I doubt they were using my ley line map, but if they were, it would have gave them the exact location that they needed to check to find the tomb. I don't know, if I was an Egyptologist, I'd probably be checking this line the whole way. But I guess they don't have those kind of resources. Yeah, you can see too that this ley line map has one of the spots emanating right in the Holy Land, with Tel Aviv being right on it. I thought that was kind of neat. Okay, so next, one of the stories from the news was that volcano. I don't know if anyone heard about it. There's a big volcano that went off in Mexico. I'll bring it up here next. Alright, this one's from the journal.ie, and it talks about how one of Mexico's most active volcanoes has unleashed 2 enormous eruptions. Yeah, so here's what it looked like. I don't know if I can play this during the live stream. Oh yeah, it's a pretty wild eruption, eh? Yeah, so a lot of people are asking, or a few people asked, like, whereabouts is this volcano on the ley lines? So here it is here. You can see where the volcano erupted, and it's pretty close to where the ley lines intersect at Mexico City, but definitely on that yellow one. And if I'll just check that yellow one and see where it goes, for interest's sake. Alright, it's that one there. Yep, so that ley line happens to go to that same spot in South America where the anomaly was. Oh yeah, and that's the same ley line that goes all the way to the Alaska quake. So I don't know, that's 3 recent events that are almost on the same yellow ley line. I think that's kind of neat. Hard to imagine that happened by coincidence. And it's neat too, you can see these ley line maps really got all the earthquakes right on the spots. Alright, so that was the earthquake. Next topic for the show. Oh yeah, recently this one of my someone I met on Facebook, yeah, I was posting in different groups, and they were showing their different ley line maps of ancient sites, how it went across America and South America like that. I was like, hey, I'll put it next to mine and see what it looks like. And you can see like he's got the patterns going out that way, just like the ley lines go there. The ones in South America he's got on angles like that. There's a few on angles like that, yeah. Oh, and yeah, and he's got the line from Florida that goes up. I guess he didn't connect it across, but you can see he pretty much had the Montana line in there. It's wild that he shows like the cliff faces look like Egyptian stuff. I'm really into that type of comparison work, so some people find it weird, but I think it's really wild. Now, and it's neat, like, what are the chances of all these lines just being a coincidence and matching up so close, but I guess it still could be. Oh yeah, we'll get into some Ottawa research. Alright, one of the readers on my page, he sent me some work on what he's been doing on magnetic field anomalies in Ottawa. And he was wondering if my ley line map crossed Ottawa. So I was checking it. I was like, yeah, when I was placing my orbs, the main center point orb here for North America happens to cross right through the center of Ottawa. And when I was checking to see like how close I should make it, where it goes to, it's like Here's Ottawa, and there's a place called Peace Tower. And I guess this Peace Tower is part of like Ottawa's building, like the Parliament. I hadn't really looked at it even though I'm Canadian. I just figured out it's some old building. But then this guy was sending me information on the ley lines here. He's like, this Peace Tower is actually an obelisk, and it's been aligned in a perfectly, like, perfect spot for this alignment. And I was thinking, yeah, it's neat that the ley line map that I have goes like right in between Peace Tower and Ottawa. So I think it's like maybe my map is off by a couple degrees, and it really should be going right through the tower. But man, that was pretty wild how close it came. Alright, and I was like, man, so what is this ley line research that you've been doing? Like, can you share some of the work that you found? I'm just going to try my soup here. Now, I've been getting sick occasionally, getting over a concussion, and feeling rough pretty all overall, but Mom's been helping out with making soup and stuff. It's one advantage about having your show studio in your mom's basement, and you can have fresh soup delivered. Anyways, so let's see. Yeah, so here's what the Peace Tower looks like, and you can tell, yeah, it's like designed just like an Egyptian obelisk, right? It's kind of surprised, I never noticed that before. Oh yeah, and here he sent me one of his videos. So I guess I'll play the video clip next, and I'll just talk through it, because Facebook will, or YouTube doesn't like when you play video clips without still talking, so not to try to talk over his video, but I do what I gotta do. Alright, so basically what he was telling me is at this spot where the magnetic anomaly is, he was putting some rocks, and they were like having this really weird effect. And like birds were coming to see what he was doing with the magnetic anomaly, almost like they're into it too.
What the fuck is that, man?
Yeah, it's funny, like when he's balancing these rocks, they're like bouncing away, like they're magnetically repelling each other. I was like, how often did you see rocks do that, right? I don't know, like when he first showed me this video too, I'm thinking maybe he's hoaxing me and putting magnets under the bench or something, and found some iron rocks that it will repel. But then he shows what the bird does. It's like this bird is having this crazy reaction to him where it's like landing right on him.
It's like attracting the birds. Look. Because I don't know, I think it's because the like...
I don't know if you're going to fake magnet rocks or whatever. It's going to be still pretty hard to fake this bird. I don't know how you pull that off.
That's me, huh? I'm filming it.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to check out his work. I think his name's AJ, and his page is Vape Dude Gaming. Doesn't have many subscribers, so you should help him out. It's like he's definitely been helping me out with my ley line research. It's kind of weird when you think about it. It's like with the internet, we can team up with these people all over the world. Yeah, like look at this. Lands right on his hand. I don't know. To me, that's one of the wildest videos I've seen in a while. I'm really glad he shared it. Hope you guys like it. Alright, so we'll get back to the show. Is my mic? Oh yeah, there it's working. Okay, so yeah, when I was thinking like that whole Parliament alignment, like how it's going, it makes me wonder, like, here, I'll bring up Google Earth so I can explain it. Remember how I was talking about at the beginning of this video, how all these different lines are lined up on the calculation based on the equinox thing? And people are always wondering, like, how did the ancient people know to build something somewhere so that it aligns for the equinoxes? to have those special effects. I'm pretty sure this ley line map is what explains how the ancients were able to calculate that. I'll show you what I mean. So like you take each of these lines and you're like, okay, that's where it is for the equator at the certain time and date. For there, that's the certain time and date it'll react. I was thinking if you're building somewhere else and you wanted to measure it to line up with the equinox solstice thing, you would just have to measure down the ley line how far you are back to this center point where the orb is. I guess that doesn't make much sense when you first think about it, but I was like, what other evidence do we have that these ley lines are actually the solstice marker lines? So then here it is. Someone was posting how the solstice works and what path it follows across Europe. I was like, hey, that path looks awfully familiar. So I booted up the Google and ta-da! It's basically that same path line is the same one on here. Maybe a little bit off on this way, like maybe that line there is the closest. But I was like, yep, this line is definitely the same type of geometry. So it's like proof that if the ancients wanted to build their sites to line stuff up to the equinoxes, having this full equator line map is what they were using. Just my guess, anyway. Alright. So that's quite a bit of the slides I wanted to cover. I'll see what else I got on here. Oh yeah, it was neat. Back when we had that big hurricane, the major one in the US, I noticed that it has like this pattern of storms that were going around the orb. I was like, where have I seen that type of pattern before? I was like, oh yeah, it's the different orb patterns that you see on the sun and different things like Jupiter. It's like their storm patterns match the same geometry. So it's like almost that thing where it's like a sacred geometry that goes not just on Earth, but you'll see it affecting other planets too. Alright, there was another viewer that shared some of his work in Portland. He was asking me where the sacred geometry went. And he's like, there's this effigy built into nature of like a woman holding up her baby. And that river connects as like the umbilical cord. And Portland is part of it. And then I went to check the ley lines, and yeah, the ley line maps her feet and goes right through the baby. Portland's also one of the cities that Billy Meyer, the UFO prophecy guy, predicted would be destroyed in our lifetime by a major earthquake. Almost like it's cursed by God or something. And it's weird too when you look at Portland, like the way the city's progressed. It's like the left wing, like liberalism there has drove it to the point where some people are calling it like the most like immoral place on the planet. Where it's like, I don't want to get into all the details of the horrible stuff going on in Portland, but it's not pretty to say the least. So yeah, so I just bring it up here on Google. Guess I'll show it. It's like I haven't researched Washington too much. Like I barely know the difference between the two Washingtons. So it was neat to get that. Yeah, it's like you can see the woman holding the baby. And he's got like a whole bunch of work on his website. I put a link to it on my Facebook page. You can just go to Leland Judson and find the links to his work. But it's neat how he shows this like alignment of this woman holding the baby matches star patterns in the sky too. And he thinks the stars are like affecting have a relationship to the earth. Sort of like the as above, so below theory. And I'm a big believer in that one too. Oh, let's see. Alright, so I guess I'll move on to the next slide if I got any more cool information and updates. Ah, yeah, I can't forget this. Yeah, so that Magi wing disc symbol that I got for the homepage here on my show, I started to realize, like, I've been laying like pictures of the Magi logo on these ley line maps so many times. I'm like, hey, what happens if I laid it like right on the center of one of these orbs? It seems like the way he's got his hand held out in different patterns, like the angles, they match the ley line orbs. So yeah, I put it on there and I was like, yep, the geometry of the way the wing disc is set up is basically a symbol for this ancient ley line map. I don't know, it's like, man, that's pretty wild. I should have seen it sooner. I know, like, people say the wing disc means different things, but I'm one of the believers that it has many meanings, so I think this is just one of the layers of meaning that it is. Not the only meaning. Yeah, so what I did too is I'm like, hey, if that wing disc is part of it, maybe the sacred tree is too. Because, what is it? The sacred tree is like 3 orb points too, like one in the center of the sword, one in the center of the jewel, one in the center of the wing disc, and they're about evenly spaced apart. So I was like, I wonder if that's part of it too. So I took my favorite Assyrian picture of the wing disc symbology in the sacred tree. I'll bring it up. Yeah, there it is there. And I overlapped the two. Lo and behold, did I find not only does the geography match, but the layout of here in Asia is actually the same shape as the sacred tree. Like if you look, the way the landmass curves here, it goes right with the eagle's beak. The way he's holding his hand out. It's like the way the hats are coming up just like islands. I know people are going to think that's a really wild comparison, but you look at the geometry of how these things work too. Like these eagles are spaced evenly so that the wings intersect with where the ley lines go. It's like the geometry of this on the planet is just unreal when you compare the two. It's wild to think, like, even the serpents coming down from the wing disc, they line perfectly with the ley lines. So it's like almost saying if you can grasp on to the ley line power, that's the power that these ancients had. Now I think it was kind of neat too, because like I believe this is the symbology of the Christmas tree was based on also. Now that we're in the holiday season, it'd be neat to do a little bit of show on that. Yeah, and here's the ley line picture I made for the North Pole. Also Christmas themed. And I'll just figure I'll put up it on Google so you guys can get an idea what it looks like closer. Yeah, it's neat, like when you look at the traditional globe and it's got all those circles drawn on the top, it comes close to mapping what the land looks like, but obviously not really close because it's not a circle up here. But when you check this line, it's like it's really mapping the shape almost identically, right? It's like even where the land bends in like that is where ley lines bend in. So I think that's pretty wild. The North Pole and the ley line map is probably some of the best evidence that it actually is something. Now it's neat too how this edge of like how the land goes like that. I always wondered what caused that. And then after looking at the ley line map, I was like, oh, I can see why that's shaped like that now. Same thing happens in other places. Like Australia's got one. Where is it? Yeah, it's like, why does this island have such a weird shape? Oh, we can see that the island is mapping the ley lines. Where's the ridge one? Sorry, try not to spin it too much and make you guys nauseous. Yeah, anyways, I guess I'll get back to the slides. Oh yeah, that was the North Pole. I think, was there any other websites I wanted to cover? Oh yeah, that was the one. So I was checking out the different scientific information that I could find on this. If what's going on with these ley lines matches up. And where is it? Oh yeah, there is the information on why Greenwich is in its place. Talks about how the prime meridian line was invented, how it got moved when they discovered that it was really close to the center of the earth, so they just shifted it slightly. Alright, but that wasn't the one I was looking for. Ah, here it is. Now, some of those comments I was reading on the videos are talking about is this information leading to like a possible pole shift? So here are some of the recent videos I found online showing that the magnetic pole or whatever did recently shift. I guess it's been shifting for a while, and it shifts faster and slower at different times, and scientists are trying to figure out why. Whoops. I'll see if I can play one of these animations. Here we go. Thank you, Mom. Okay, so yeah, there's what the animation looks like. It's pretty wild that the magnetic pole could be shifting. People are probably wondering, is there any evidence on this ley line map that the magnetic poles have shifted in the past? So I'll bring that up next. Boy, this website is not very good. How do you close those? Oh, there. Okay, so I'll bring up Google Earth and I'll show you the evidence that I have that the poles have shifted in the past and that what directions they went. Alright, so basically when I first made this ley line map, I noticed that the ancient sites were all aligning as if the orb was actually here and not over here. So it's like it moved slightly. Wow, look at that, where the red earth lines align in Oklahoma. That's definitely where a lot of earthquakes are happening. Yeah? Anyway, so yeah, those lines made it seem like the pole, magnetic pole or orb spot should be here, but it shifted. So it's like, is there any evidence that we can see for a shift of these orbs moving, like a drag line going from left to right? I was like, it almost looks like this orb was dragged through here at one point. I was like, oh, here we go. At the equator, there's a lot of evidence that the orb shifted from there to there. And you can see here, there's a little bit of evidence of shifting. It shifted from there to there, possibly. Here's more evidence that it could have shifted from there to there. So it's like, well, if there's this evidence of shifting on one side of the planet, what kind of evidence do we see of shifting on the other? And it's right by India is where you see a lot of it. Like here, halfway in between India and Asia, or I guess Thailand, you can see here's where the orb is now, and there's a drag line going that way, but this drag line below India is massive. Like, look how far the orb has shifted in the past. I don't know if it's maybe this one shifted that far and then back, or this one shifted the whole way, but it looks like this shifting process goes in a certain direction. Like here it went that way and then that way, and then here it went down and that way. So I don't know, I'm pretty sure this is evidence. Like, we see these drag marks next to the orb showing where these poles have shifted in the past. But the way that the lines like outcut the continents so closely, I'm pretty sure that our planet really, like, I don't know, it's hard to imagine that it was any other shape before. Like Australia, you can see it really got divided by the blue continent lines. America was heavily influenced by the blue ones. I know, what is it, South America was really influenced by the red lines. You can see the red lines pretty much divided South America. Oh yeah, the blue line pattern, or it looks pretty nice in India too. The blue one looks cool though. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this part was heavily influenced by the blue line field. Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to show everyone the new updates about the orbs, and I guess I'll get into what I saved the show topic for last, is the Mars connection. Basically, like when you go into space, it's like the different planets all have the same orb pattern affecting them as well. So places like Mars and stuff are going to have the same pattern. And I was wondering, like, maybe that's why NASA keeps sending all these probes there. Because maybe they figured out that this orb pattern is really a thing. And now they're testing it on Mars. Like here, I'll show you what I'm talking about. This Mars rover, or I guess it's not even a rover, it's just a lander, because it can't roll anywhere. It was designed to measure the earthquake activity on Mars. I was like, isn't that neat? It's like, just when I'm figuring out all these different ley lines and how these magnetic fields are shaping the planet and affecting earthquakes, seems like NASA is on the same line of thought, where they're discovering these ley line powers with earthquakes, and or even testing it on Mars to see if they can find out any connections. So I'm like, I know some people don't even think that the Mars rovers are real, but I'm one of those believers that it's like, I think that there is something fishy going on at NASA, but it's like they're not telling us the whole story. Not that it's like a fake story. They're just leaving some of the best parts out. I won't get too much into my space conspiracies on this episode, but like I have a whole bunch of reasons of why the ancients wanted people to stay on the Earth and why they don't want us to leave the Earth, so I'll get into that, I guess, in a future episode. And the other information I thought that was neat that connects to this is that 5G network. I don't know if people have been listening to that at all in the news, how people are debating whether or not that 5G network is actually terrible and it's going to be bad for our health. And it's weird too, I always thought this 5G network was like the same as all these other networks, but it's like they need crap loads of antennas everywhere. They said that the signal's so weak that they're going to have to put antennas like every few feet in some places. I was like, that's ridiculous. Like the possible damage that's going to cause to people's health. It's like even mainstream news is covering it and some countries are banning it. It's like, I want faster internet and service, but I'm just wondering, like, these 5G networks, are they going to be interfering with this ley line energy? I'll show you what I mean. It's like, if you check some of these ley lines and how they go through the cities, it's like all of our planet's biggest cities, like Kiev and Moscow and all these different places, Sofia, and it's like they're all right on the ley lines. So it's like all the people are plugged into these ley lines as like some part of like an energy field grid. So I don't know if we start screwing around with energy field grids, what kind of effect it's going to have on people. Like, look how London goes right through one. Dublin is almost on one. Paris, Belgium. I think you really notice it in North America too. Oh, here we go. Dakar's right on one. Lisbon is on one. Yeah, so guess that's the information about hope that this 5G network isn't as bad as it sounds. I don't know if it really is going to have effect on these ley lines and if it's going to make the earthquake energy better or worse. Guess I'll do another episode in the future too about different locations people want to see and see more detail about how the line crosses by close to where they live near to them. Or if anyone else wants to make this map now, it's like I gave the formulas at the beginning of the video on how you can just make it. I was going to release copies to everyone, but I'm having trouble getting the export files going. So it might be just easier for people to make their own map. And I kind of like to see other people make their own too, to see if it turns out any different than mine. I'm not trying to say mine's the perfect map. I'd like to see if anyone else has ones that are similar or even different and what I can learn from those. Yeah, so I guess I'll just give a brief look at all the different continents and where earthquakes have been happening, how the different ley lines interact with them. Oh, it's neat too. This orb pattern here, I don't know, most people don't notice, but there's different weather radar services and they show huge storms occur there. Yeah, I guess this area hasn't had many earthquakes. The South Pole is good. Yeah, I guess I'll just give a quick zoom in so people can get a more look at the Holy Land's ley lines. You can see that Tel Aviv is on one. I'm kind of surprised that the center point didn't fall directly on Jerusalem, because people are always fighting over that place, but who knows, maybe where is it at the center? Maybe the place called Arad used to be more popular? I don't know. Yeah, I hope no one freaks out about the different earthquake patterns that I'm showing here. I'm not trying to freak people out or anything, telling you not to travel where these red lines are, but just showing it like it is. Whatever information you want to decipher from that is really up to you. You can't live in fear, right? You never know. Yeah, it's pretty wild, like that big Alaska quake, when you look at where the ley lines interacted there. Like a lot right where those interacted. And it's neat too, it's always right where those the orb patterns where the giant red lines come out. Man, if you live near one of those, you're going to have a hell of a lot of earthquakes. I guess people have never really explained why the Ring of Fire was so active. So you can get a look. There's quite a bit of red lines in the Ring of Fire. Oh yeah, I was going to show people too that this line where all these Solomon Island quakes and Indonesia quakes and stuff are happening, it's the one that connects all the way up here to Iran, where the Iran quakes were happening, and it goes down to the Africa anomaly spot. Alright, I guess I'll just check the chat and see if there's anyone who wanted to ask a question. I guess it's kind of a lame time to have a show today, so no one joined the chat. Now, recently YouTube said they were going to get rid of a bunch of people that had subscribed to my channel because of spam, so I'm not sure what that was, but hopefully I can get my subscribers up to about 1,000 and I can get some better leyline guests to come on the show, share their information. Because I've been getting help with a lot of different leyline researchers, not trying to claim that I invented all this research or anything, so I'd like to get some more of them on the show to share what they've got. Because a lot of them made leyline maps that were so similar to mine. It's just that I think the placement of a few of the orbs was the only thing we disagreed on. And usually not by much, usually just a few degrees. Alright, so I'll give everyone a map look and what it looks like for each different color. Alright, so here's what the red ley lines look like. Makes some pretty nice patterns. I actually started with adding the rest of Perry Reese's 32 degrees, but it was getting really cluttered, so I just got one line on there that I was checking that goes through Europe. Yeah, I hope everyone posts their comments of what they think of this ley line map. If you've seen any bad mistakes I made somewhere, if you think I should change anything, or it's just wild altogether. Alright, we'll check it out in blue. Now I try not to spin it around a whole lot because, man, it makes me nauseous with my concussion. Sure, it's not even great without a concussion. Yeah, the blue lines are really wild. Yeah, see, there's a big section of nothing, huh? Alright, thanks for watching the video, everyone, and yeah, if in the chat you want me to make a new video about a certain location to zoom in on to see where the ley lines go, just leave a comment in there. I'll try to get to it. And yeah, thanks. Hope everyone liked the video, and if you can subscribe to my YouTube channel and give a like on the Facebook page too, that always helps out a lot. The more viewers I can get, the better guests I can get to talk about on the show about different topics like this, so really appreciate it when you subscribe. Alright, thanks everyone, and guess I'll close Google Earth. Yeah, okay.
The Magi Show was brought to you by
Take care.
the Milky Way. I hate this galaxy.